Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. And my guest today comes from, well, partially from Poland, partially from London, UK. Mateusz Chorzepa. Welcome to Fiberchats.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here with you.
Well, tell me a little bit about your backstory. So you grew up in Poland, right? Tell me a little bit about growing up there and your
Okay,
connection to
so
fiber world.
all right, yes. So I grew up in Poland, in town called Poznań, in the central part of Poland. Uh, in my life, there was not much connection with the fiber at all when I was a kid. As every single kid in Poland, those days in 90s, you usually actually attend to the classes when you have a kind of a technical lessons, and you learn how to make a wooden boxes for the birds, yeah, nesting boxes for the birds. You learn how to knit as well and how to crochet. But that is Asian history,
Well, was it
isn't
for
it?
both for boys and girls? Like everybody
Every
learns.
yes, everyone. It's like every in the boys and the girls they make exactly the same things. Um, but then you're just growing up, and you don't actually focus on fiber itself. Even so, in my family, in the place where I come from, because I said from Poznan, but Poznan is a big town. I live next to Poznan on the countryside, and my grandparents they used to have a flock of sheep, which I didn't know by the way before that. And also, my grandmother she used to spin the wool to make a socks, to make a jumpers, to make a hats. And but I actually never heard the story from her. I heard the story from my dad, the oldest son. So I went. I graduated one university in Poznań, a landscape architecture university. Still working with the nature, with plants, with gardens. Uh, and in certain moment of my life, I just decided I would like to learn a proper English. So I went where the closest place in Europe to learn proper English, of course, is England. Which place is the best to travel? London, of course. So I went to London and I started working as a gardener here as well.
Mhm.
In between work with the gardening, then the first winter came over, and the winter nights are so long. So I thought to do something, to some new hobby. Um, and then what was the hobby? The hobby was a knitting, the thing you can take everywhere with you. Just a bunch of two sticks, a piece of yarn, yeah, and just start knitting.
Wait, wait,
And
wait. Have you knitted between the time when they taught you in school and that
no,
day
no,
when you
maybe
decided?
I do some crocheting, but it was like, I just want to try something. It wasn't I didn't have like a long story of knitting. No, I knit already for like very, very intensively for several years. And I think compared to other people, I can just say if I count all the time I spend on knitting, it might take like 20 years, for the average person. It was very addictive at a certain moment of my life. Because also, what to do with these long evenings, you can watch Netflix, you can see television all the time, but you can do something. You can do something, and in the end, you have some like ready garment, ready object you can wear. It's make your like satisfaction. You can feel this own satisfaction inside of you, because you with your hand you can create something. And in the modern days, where everybody creates something online, creates something in internet, you have something you can touch actually.
Right.
An entire process. For me, never it was never therapeutic. It was never something like, oh my god, this is very special for me. No, it just was the part like I just grabbed the needles and I thought I have to rediscover the knitting again. And by the way, I am a very good knitter, but I am a very bad crocheter. I I really don't know how people can crochet. I'm so sorry to everybody who is actually crocheting, but I think this is at a different level of work with yarn. So I started work with different sort of British wool, and because I'm Polish, as I mentioned before, I will start looking for a Polish wool, and I discover suddenly there is nothing like that exist. See,
Interesting.
you see?
But there is different, like there are different sheep breeds in Poland, right?
Yes, they are, but you see, compared to UK, when you can find more than 62 different pure breed of sheep, we have only 19. And in UK, just have this comparison because I'm living in UK and Poland, it's like more than 26 million of sheep, and in Poland it's like approximately less than 300,000. It's absolutely just a little bit, but still they are existing, you know. And the knitting community in Poland is huge. I can tell you, is huge. And if you ask any, my mother, my grandmother, both my grandmothers, everyone I know, I mean, the older generation, they actually know how to knit. So,
Right.
you know, the culture of knitting was existing. And of course, it's coming from different era of history when we didn't have any Primarks, we didn't have any H&M. You just cannot go to the shop and buy anything. You just have to make it. If
Right.
you don't make it, you didn't have it. So it was a part actually of life. You know, everyone. It's like a skill, like a primary skill to
Right.
almost like survive. So everyone knows how to knit. So the knitting community in Poland is huge. And I started looking for the Polish wool, Polish yarn, and I couldn't find it. You know, I couldn't find a yarn made like I was imagine like in Britain. You know, I go to the very first good yarn store, and you go and it's like, do you have any yarn from Scotland? And they said, yeah, this is, you know, or something from Wales. Yeah, this, or maybe you have something, you know, English wool, and you can find everything. In Poland, you go to any kind of store, even the decent one, and they tell you, "Oh, this yarn is from Norway. This one is from Peru. This one is from Mongolia." You know what I mean? From all over the world, but actually not from Polish ship. No, not from Polish ship of breed. So you know, I start looking at what to do, how to get that, how to, you know, how it was in the past. You know, if my grandmother, she knows how to make a socks or a jumper from the from the wool, she from her sheep, yeah, from the her flock of sheep. So why I cannot doing that? So I start researching where I can actually learn how to process raw fleeces into the yarn. And you know, those days, it was several years ago, and it was super difficult to find the place. Even so, in London, it was very difficult to find a place. So I asked my Scottish friend, you know, because I have this imagination those days. In Scotland, they have a huge amount of sheep, which is actually true. Maybe the Wales have much more than Scotland. I don't know exactly, but I know in Scotland there's a lot of them. And she made a research for me. She found a workshop. It was I asked her in I think like late autumn, and the workshop was early spring. So I wait entire winter to, you know, waiting just for this workshop. Yes, and then in the end I drive up to the north, and that's how I learned how to process in raw fleeces. The workshop was stunning because we start from the raw fleece into the washing, into the carding and combing, and then we spin in the end. So all the process, you know, in one day. And that's how I discovered this is something for me. You know, on the beginning, like everything, like every you are an eater, yeah. So you
Right.
know how frustrating was the first stitches slip, you know, and then you just lost the stitch, and was, you know, was quite frustrating. With spinning, it's exactly the same. If you start, it's like if you start spinning, because processing wool is one thing, but the end of it, spinning, and drafting a fiber, it might be very frustrating because you want to have a make, you know, like one of the most finer fiber, you know, very thin and beautiful and even, and then it's like wobbly bobbly, you know, like it's like it's a really it's like a bumpy. It's like boucle almost, you know, sometimes. So it's just a practice. It's a matter of practice, and I start practicing a long. I was almost addicted. I just, you know, gave up temporarily with the knitting and start spinning, like seriously spinning.
Oh, wait a second.
Ah,
Like when I think about spinning, and I never tried spinning. I'm fascinated by that, but I've never actually tried it.
You
I've
have to come to London to visit me on the
I know
workshop.
that's how, you know what, like you have to be careful who you invite because I might just show up there with a group of people. Um, but the
That
thing
will be
is, like,
nice.
there are different ways of spinning. There you have like this industrial almost looking wheels that I see you on Instagram with, or you have this little Turkish spindle. Like, how did you
Oh,
start and what was that process like? How did you learn?
okay. So I start with the spinning wheel. like I think that if I well remember, because there are mostly two leading companies who producing modern spinning wheels, which is Ashford from New Zealand, uh, Australia, or I think from New Zealand, and Kromsky from Poland. And I think from this first workshop, we have all the spinning wheels were Ashfords. And I start with spinning wheel. I didn't start with a spindle.
Mhm.
That will be very funny now. I was spinning maybe for 3 years when, watch out, I discovered where the spinning spindles actually, I mean, the spindles existing. I'm telling you. So for many people, they start journey with spinning. They start from the spindle. I don't know why. I just went for a workshop with with the spinning wheel. I mean, even the woman who actually running this workshop, she didn't mention anything about spindles, so never popped by to my head. And because I didn't make any research, I didn't follow anyone on online, I didn't see any videos about spinning in internet. I just focus, like this on my path. I have a spinning wheel, and I'm just going to spin on the spinning wheel. And suddenly discover in internet through Instagram, I discovered a wonderful woman called Jane Hunt, and she is spinning from this stuff using a medieval spindles. And I went to her workshop as well to see how this is working. And from that moment, I also understood the spindle actually is a very important. It was much in the history. It was much way before spinning wheel, and it helps you to understand, in slowly process how to drafting fiber, how to give a twist. It's a little bit different, but I focus mostly on spinning wheels, different kind. My first spinning wheel was that's very worth to mention. um, Very robust and strong modern spinning wheel called Minstrel by Kromsky and Sons. I highly recommend that. I think you might find them very easily in US because they sending a lot of them there. And I start spinning on that wheel, like really like just like one path. Don't look on the other people what they are doing. And I search and somehow just find out, different fibers, not only wool from sheep. So then I discover, okay, different fibers you have to spun different way, or that kind of sort of small details you're discovering on the process. If you have some much more experienced person next to you, maybe my path will be much shorter, but it takes me a while. But then I understand, okay, once how to get find out the farmer and the raw fleeces in UK. And then I thought, I think I'm finally ready to find a farmer or shepherd in Poland. And I found it, one, second one, the third one. And that's how I start creating more and more and more yarn, my own one. Of course, sheep is always white, mostly white. So you very rarely knitting with the white yarn. I'm sure very rarely people knit with the white yarn or raw, like looking like a raw yarn. So I start also learning how to dye the yarn, how to find different colors to be much more interesting. But in the end, I end up with a massive amount of yarn made by myself. So I clearly stopped buying any yarn from all over the world. Even so, I bought a little bit of because buying yarn is one thing, but then I start experiencing with different fibers as well. So 2 years ago, I ordered, especially I think there's some farm in the northern part of USA with American bison, and they selling actually the fiber for spinners. So I ordered just 100 grams, super expensive, but I bought just for my experience. By the way, if anyone who is watching this now and want to try it, is really worth the money. By the way, it's super soft. It's almost like a cashmere, like very soft fiber. You don't even think, the bison could be an animal you can actually take a fiber and spin. I didn't. I never heard that before. Randomly, I discovered someone doing this, and why not? I can try. So I tried as well. So by the way, I end up with the huge amount of wool spun by myself. And I thought, it's only me actually in Poland who want to knit from the Polish, from the Polish wool, locally sourced with from the different farms. And we have, by the way, we have also three types of Polish merino. So the yarn is, the fiber is really, really soft. It's not like scratchy. It's not very rustic. It's a really soft fiber, but you have to know how to process. Because before, all these piles of fiber, fleeces actually, they end up on the pile, like as a junk, it's a rubbish, unwanted. So I thought, why not to try? And I tried, and with kind of success, producing so much wool. And then I thought, what to do with this? I cannot just have a endless amount of wool, just for myself. And I'm really good at spinning, so I spin quite quickly, quite fast. And I thought, why to not share with people? So I start selling the Polish wool, which I spun. And in the end, I realized there is more and more people actually who is interested to buy the wool, which is actually locally sourced. Is you actually know the fiber, and even more, the fiber processed by hand is completely different than the fiber processed in the big manufacturers.
Right.
One of the very, very, I think, interesting information is you never can get rid of completely of the lanolin. And everyone who is a spinner, they know if you buy a like carded fiber prepared for spinning from the big factories, they usually are very, very, very dry, like very dry. But if you prepare it by yourself with your hands, it's a different story. The fiber always consider a little bit of lanolin, sometimes more, sometimes less. We all know the lanolin is used in the beauty factory in many, many cases. So you can feel it in your hands, all this when you're knitting, when you're processing. It's quite you can have a very soft hands in the end. So I start selling the yarn, and in the end up, to open like a little manufactory just to promote and reach more people who actually are interested to find the wool. So
And
yeah,
it's,
that's the
and right now you're working. It's called the Wielkopolska Wool Manufacturing, right?
yes, Wielkopolska Wool Manufactory, yes.
So there's different colors. There is different. Is there different thicknesses of yarn? Like what do
Okay.
people find there?
Okay, so basically the most important for me is to work really locally. So as every country, even Poland is divided for some states. Wielkopolska is actually one of them, and we have a local ship as well, which was created in 1948. It was like a crossbreed with the local sheep, including Merino, including Romney Marsh from UK. So the sheep itself have a very, very soft fiber, almost like Merino. So I mostly work with the 80%. My yarn, what I produce, is made from that wool, that breed of sheep. And also, we have a colored merino. We have a different breeds of sheep, which actually are naturally give you some color, which I love so much,
Yeah.
because you can always mix them together. So you can find actually all sort of different fibers, and each of them is a different as well. You see, the one very good example is we have a three primitive breeds of sheep in Poland, like new from medieval time, and everything is depend how you process and what kind of wool you already have got. If you have wool or a fleece from a very old sheep, it will be much more rusty, much more itchy. But if you have a wool from the lamb, it's a completely different story. You see, we have one of sheep breed in Poland. It's called wrzosówka, a very difficult word, but it's called wrzosówka. Um, and people always complain these fleeces, they are only good for carpet.
Mhm.
And I made an experiment um, based on my very good information from Jane Hunt. Like I, divide undercoat and the long hair, like very rough hair, separate them, and I find out the undercoat of this sheep is absolutely stunning. It's super soft, again, like cashmere, But you have to know how to process that. If you don't know, just blend everything together, and there's like, very.
Right.
If you have experience maybe with Icelandic wool, it might be something similar, quite itchy and rustic texture of wool. But if you process it nicely and the right way, and also if you don't wash all the lanolin also is just go around the fiber and make it much more smoother. So you can have this feeling. And so I have a several whenever I'm going somewhere, have some stool or just making some show. I'm always showing people the same, I mean the same breed of sheep, but different skein of wool. And they say, "Oh, this is super soft, and this is very rustic. Is it this a different breed?" They asked me, and I said, "No, it's the same sheep, the same kind of sheep, but you have to know what to choose for your processing. And if you know what you are doing, then you have a good final effect." So that's the yeah.
Well, there's this book called Outliers, and in that book, basically, the theory is that if you do something for 10,000 hours, you're becoming an expert in the field.
Ah,
Uh, do you feel like you became an expert in the field, or do you think like there is always something else to learn in this thing?
Okay, that's a very good question. Thank you, by the way. This is a really good question because you see, I'm working very hard to rediscover all this Polish breed of sheep. Is a 19 of them. I'm collecting all the samples. I'm writing down all my notes about them as well, and just try to promote as much as I can amongst the Polish reading community. Because I spend lots of hours on that topic, I can feel like an amateur semi-expert, but I don't feel like a very, very great expert because I know there's always someone else who has a much more bigger knowledge than me. So we have a great like a great two projects in Poland as well called Project Polish Wool, run by very, very, very nice lady from southern Poland, and she has a very similar aim as me, but she's not processing wool, but she's going to different places, studying all the books from different kind of libraries, making very good articles about each breed of sheep. I'm very inspired by her as well. So there are people actually who bring this knowledge as well, maybe in wider spectrum, like scientific way as well. But I'm trying to do and trying to show this to the people like me, the people who are actually knitters who work with wool and how to work with that kind of wool. Because I know in your case, but no, actually, I realized not everyone know how to work with handspun yarn. Some people they think it's very difficult because handspun yarn have their own character. It's not like made by machinery, just straight thread all the time. Usually, it is also by hand if you have much experience. But sometimes it's a little bit, thicker, thinner, and people think like, oh, this is, this might not looks good, or I know how to knit with that. So I always recommend knitting with the handspun yarn to people who actually really know how to knit. Not the one, I'm sorry to say, not the one who knitting only with the patterns. Because if you only knit with the pattern, you might be, disappointed in the end. You have to know what you are doing.
When you hold the handspun yarn that you created, what does it feel like?
Oh, like heaven, Oh my God. It's feel I'm seriously, it feels like a heaven. I personally, I very rarely need from something else. Now, when I need something or weaving something, I use it's only really only my own yarn. And also, when I have a bunch of carded fleeces, and let's say I'm knitting some projects, and I run out of the yarn, I'm always able to spin extra extra amount of fiber.
You don't run
So
out
yeah,
of yarn.
I no, absolutely not.
So when it comes to the pricing, like you're selling your handspun yarn, I'm sure it's way more expensive than buying something from a manufacturer in Turkey, let's say. Do people mind that? Do you have to educate your consumers, or do people really appreciate the labor that goes into this fleece to yarn movement?
Okay, that's also a very good question. I often am asked if this yarn is much more expensive, and I have to tell you something. It is expensive, yes, from the common companies which they make the yarn, but they are like small spinning mills, certainly in UK, which they selling a skein of yarn for 25, 28 pounds per 100 gram. I
Wow,
sell them less. I sell them less. So it's still I'm competitive with with the small mills as well. But yes, if the key point is to educate people, to tell them like, listen, this is locally from this and from that and that place. You can touch it as well. When they touch the yarn, they can also feel it's completely different than the yarn from the factory, the big factories. It's not super dry. It's have this, this lanolin feeling, I call it like alive almost, like a living yarn, because it's almost from the living animal, it's not like completely washed from the soul of a fiber. So in the end, I think, once you met me in real life, the people are quite convinced to actually purchase the yarn.
right.
It's not that difficult, but it's still, we have to work a lot, because in especially in Poland there is this feeling like the Polish wool is kind of itchy and kind of rustic, and I think it might come from 70s, 80s, when we have that kind of wool. Really, we have that kind of wool, and the modern nowadays people go to the Polish mountains, the highlands, the close to Zakopane, for example, and the same, they buy some wool from there, and it's very itchy. And in the end, they spread a message, but Polish wool is itchy, rustic, it's not nice for skin. But actually, it's not true. I mean, because there's only one part of the kind of breed which is existing in mountains, uh, very primitive as well. So I work with wool, which is much more softer, much more friendlier for the skin. And sometimes people asking me, oh, because I have different garments made already from my wool, and they ask you, what kind of wool is that? When I tell them is the wool I spun by myself, they are very surprised, because they say like, and this is not even itchy, this is not even scratchy. What kind of wool is that? And I tell them it's a Wielkopolska ship. So yeah, it's quite easy to convince people nowadays if they see me and we have a personal chat. Yes, maybe through the screen, if you sorry, if you want to buy um that kind of wool headspan through internet on some website, maybe it will be difficult to just to check if it's nice or not. But
Right.
nowadays, I think it's much easier. Yeah.
Well, I asked you a question before about the school educating both boys and girls about knitting and crochet. Is
Mhm.
there any stigma of being a man in this woolen industry? Because it used to be traditionally a male-oriented industry, but then at some point it became this domestic craft skill that mostly women were carrying. So, do you get resistance from the Polish women about you selling yarn?
Okay, that's also a very good question, because I have so much to tell you about that. Um, yes, that's mostly a woman's part in the past to work with wool. I don't know if I read this somewhere or heard somewhere. I might be wrong. If someone is watching this right now and know the truth, can maybe correct me in the section down on the comment section. But I heard in the Fair Isle, the mostly men was responsible for spinning, and the ladies make these beautiful garments. They knitting beautiful garments. And in my life, because I'm traveling also with the spinning wheel all around the country, I'm meeting different people. And I will surprise you. Last year, I met a man, 74 years old, live in Poland as well. And he just stopped me when I was walking with my spinning wheel, under my arm, and he said like, "Oh, boy, I have exactly the same spinning wheel." And I said, "Oh, really? Can you show me?" It's like, "I'm not going to sell you that. It's not for it's not for selling. So I just want to know, how it looks like." So we have a little chat. He invited me for coffee. He shows me his spinning wheel. He's 74, now 75. And he told me the story when he was 16, 20, long time ago. He said, "I have three sisters. None of them want to spin wool. My mother taught me how to do it. And because I was the youngest one, I have to do it, just for entire family." So there definitely there were some men who actually spin wool. But yes, this is always, smile on the face, like, "Oh, this is a guy. The guy doing this." But I think breaking the stereotype, it's only help to understand also the process, and because maybe it's me spinning, sitting behind the spinning wheels, anyone is just come over and have a chat. From the oldest, from the youngest, middle age, everyone, girls, guys, everybody. Uh, when I was starting knitting in the public space a few years ago as well, because I was knitting at home, just, maybe this is not, appropriate to just go, in the underground, sitting and knitting. No. So when I start knitting in public space, I was quite surprised. Like so many people want to, take like a secret, like sneak peek picture of me. Really, it was so fun. Even one, even one time, there's just some guy was sitting next to me, and he was just like, "Oh, like Tom Daly." And he's like, I was like, "What? Oh, like Tom Daly?" And he's like, "You don't know Tom Daly?" It's like, the Olympic, guy who is he also knitting." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, I of course I know." So he take a, selfie with me. It was so fun because he never met a guy actually who knit in his real life.
Right.
So and sometimes I'm knitting in the double pointed needles. If you're knitting the socks in a round, I am not a great fan of magic loop. So people also ask me, "Oh, you have a five needles? How you knit on the five needles?" And several times in underground, different ladies ask me, "Is possible?" They say, "I'm knitting for 15 years. I never knit, in five needles in a round." I knit all the time because I like this technique. It's very easy to make a tubular knitting.
When I'm knitting, right? I'm working on the project that I'm working on now, but in my head, I'm already like three projects ahead. I'm already like, my brain is planning what I'm gonna do next and what else I wanna do. And I see some stuff on Instagram that's like, oh my God, I have to have it. I see some yarn at the yarn festivals, and my brain is going on fire of like everything I can possibly make with that yarn. I feel like if I had another hobby, and like that's why I'm telling you, like I'm fascinated by spinning, but like part of my hesitation is I'm not gonna have time to knit them. How do you balance the spinning and knitting? How do you find time for both?
Okay, yes, that's a good question too, because as I mentioned before, when I discover spinning, I just put aside my knitting needles, and then I back to knitting and spinning, and I also working as well. So, but this is like if you have just this free moment, in your life, and you can do, as I said before, watching something in tele or doing some stupid things or just scrolling phone. I prefer just to, take a cup of tea, sit down and knit. That's my moment of the day. Or sometimes in the early morning between 6 and 7 a.m. I just, have a knitting needles in my hand, morning coffee, and just enjoy my time. And I think your life is also slowing down at this moment. So you have to find out this balance somehow, because if you forget about divide your life in work and the pleasure, and the hobbies, so then you can be quite lost. So if you find out, you just have to feel it in your heart. This is a time for knitting. Okay, I run out of yarn. This is time for spinning, or this is time for washing, carding. This is it's came naturally to me. What I can say, it's come naturally.
I'm looking through your Instagram, I'm scrolling through, like preparing for this interview. I see you ice skating. I see you being a beekeeper. I see you making donuts from scratch. Like there is so many sides to you, right? Like there is whole gardening side and your obsession with different plants at different times of the year. How many things bring you joy in life? Like how do you bring all of it together as one
But you
Matthew?
see, but you see, I think the life is created from the small things. As we know from the very beginning of this conversation, I'm Polish, So if you do something, you have to do it from scratches. There is never easy way to make. So you have to start. But I'm not making donuts every day. That's have to be. Let's be honest.
Right.
That was a special Fat Thursday before Easter. So it was a special day. We prepare every. I hope so. Every pulse it has to prepare it. Otherwise, it has to go and buy it. uh, Beekeeping is always time to time thing, so you are not spending like every day in the beehive just looking after bees. Is several times in the year you're actually doing it. And I also have my lovely parents and my father helping me with the bees to keep them alive, to maintain them in between when I am away, let's say like that. So, and also, ice skating. This is also the part of my life because when I was a child, and we live in next to the lake, by the way. So each year the lake was completely frozen. So with ice skating, it was something you just grew up with. You just know how to do it. It's not like you don't know how to do it. And I have to be honest because you might see my recent video how I was ice skating, and it was maybe the last time I was ice skating was like 15 years ago. I will be honest with you, 15 years ago. And now, because the winter was so cold, I just take advantage to go outside and ski a little bit.
You started with like learning all this process. You started going through different breeds of sheep, you picking up this knowledge from other people who in this
Yes.
industry. At what point did you decided that you need to also share your knowledge that you acquired so far? Like, is it hard to come out and say, you know what, I'll be the teacher now?
Okay, Irina, you know what? You're giving me really good questions. Really, I think one of the best questions. Why? Because you see, I remember myself when it was super difficult for me to find out this knowledge, to get into that information, how to process. Now I know there is 100 of videos in YouTube or something in internet, but those days I didn't know how to even start with. And the spinning wheel, I can be very honest, you have to have someone to show you how to start with. You can try by yourself, but it's much more difficult than just someone sitting next to you and correct your hands, correct your feet, and etc. etc. Make a long story shorter, there is a yarn shop in London called Knit With Me UK, run by Carol. And I attending to this yarn shop to buy some yarn. And she was asking me, she asked me one time if I said I'm also spinning wool, processing fleeces, and etc. etc. Oh, maybe you would like to run a workshop in our shop. And I thought that the first time she asked me, I said, no, I don't have a time for that. I'm very busy man. No. But then I back again to the shop, and she asked me again. And I said, why not? Why not start it? Just like let's see how it goes. So she helped to organize the one of the first workshop. Then I went to some schools as well across London with spindles. Those days, not with spinning wheel, but with spindles as well. Teaching boys and girls, how to processing raw fleece. So the sharing all the information I've got to make it much easier for anyone who actually want to attend to my workshop, make it much easier for them because I knew for what kind of difficult path I had. And also, if I know the workshop will be in London, I'm trying to always work with the local breeds of sheep which is have here around London. If I'm doing this in Poland, I'm trying to find out the breed from particular region, let's say. Like, in Poznan, where I come from, I use the Wielkopolska sheep. If I'm running closer to the mountain, I use the mountain type of sheep. So the people who actually attend to the workshop, they can identify with this, unwritten heritage, which is, the part of their culture. It was the part of the culture which actually vanishing. So teaching people is not only about just a process, it's also teaching about the cultural aspect of processing wool, how important it was. Until now, I don't know what's going on in this planet. The wool was super, super important through all the centuries, rather than just right now. Last 50 years or 60 years, something changed
Right.
completely. Like we had, that we had like golden fleece, yeah, from the Greek, exact. So that is a very valuable thing, and now everywhere they will end up in the pile of rubbish or of pile of waste. So if can inspire as many people as as possible to start processing raw fleece, just go to your local farmer, take one fleece. You don't have to take a 10, just one fleece, and if you know how to knit, just you don't have to buy expensive spinning wheel, just basic hand carders and the spindle, and you can really do a lot, and just slow down with your life, and you can give it you can give a new life into the fiber you just brought. So there's so many things standing behind the teaching, but that's the whole, the whole spirit, just to give them the possibility to quicker discover what I was, trying to find out all these years.
Right. It reminds me like when my kids were little and I would drive around with them in the back seat and you just like whizzing by, it's like you don't notice anything. And then you go for a walk and suddenly they point at like beautiful leaves and they find some unique flowers and some weird grass and some bugs and whatever. And it just reminds me like when you slow down, when you're not in a rush to get to your next destination and do the next thing, life around you becomes so much richer. So it's the same thing that you do.
Exactly, exactly. That's the whole point of life, You can live very quickly, don't even be conscious what is going on around you, or you can just go slowly, take a breath, look on the flower, look on the clouds, on the sky, and be present in the same moment of your life, and then enjoy the time with your family as well.
Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about your Instagram because your Instagram is very, how should I put it? Like cinematic.
Chaotic. Ah,
Cinematic.
cinema.
With a touch of chaos, but like
Yes.
there is like certain aesthetic to all your videos and it seems like you're trying to set up a scene. Tell me a little bit about your philosophy behind your Instagram.
Yeah. See, so I'm so pleased you actually pointed that, because that's whole the story behind my Instagram, my this little short videos as well, which I'm making, especially with the spinning wheel. And I think someone even last year put some comment on my YouTube like, why Matthew, why are you doing such a I think like such a basic or primitive thing in a cinematic way? And my answer is very simple, very simple. I am doing this because people, they buying with their eyes, if they see something, they want to be there, they want to identify with that. So I thought, if I will make it this in the cinematic way, then maybe I can inspire more people to just, grab the spindle, grab the spinning wheel, or be interesting in the hand spun yarn, or, start processing wool. So yeah, that's the story. I just trying to encourage people to start their journey with, with the processing wool. So that's why I make it a little bit more cinematic.
Well, if I would talk to you, I don't know, 15 years ago, I'm sure none of this conversation would be the same. Like,
Absolutely.
so when you think about the future, like what's your vision? What are you trying to achieve and what's your goals? What's your ambitions? Like where do you see yourself 15 years from now?
Okay, that's also a good question, because as I mentioned before, I live in London and a little bit in Poland as well, but mostly in London. And this is a big town. It's a really big town. And I am not a city guy. I'm 100% a countryside person. And I'm seeing myself somewhere on the countryside, running a tiny farm, producing maybe some delicious food, also processing wool, creating some woolly garments, woolly products. But I think I will mostly focus on producing, like organic food from my local community in little farm. But including on that farm, it has to be a several sheep.
That sounds
because the wool,
actually wonderful.
because yeah, because I think the sheep and the wool, they will stay with me. I think now till the end of my life, unless something really, really, I don't know, happened. But yeah, if you ask me now, I can tell you I am seeing myself among flock of sheep, milking them, making cheese, making good organic food for people, for local community. So
Well,
I think that's my goal.
if that farm ever opens and that vision comes true, I'm definitely gonna come with a group of friends
Oh,
to
you are
visit
very
you.
welcome.
That
You are
sounds
very welcome.
that sounds really fun. Well, I'm gonna put all the information about how people can find you and maybe try your yarn and take part of in your workshops in the description of this video. And
Thank you.
Matthew, it was like a real joy to chat with you. I really enjoyed it.
Irina, thank you very much. You contacted me because it was a pleasure, to give you a little bit of my private, well, not so private because it's mostly in public as well, but life about wool. Thank you very, very much. And I hope anyone who is actually watching that enjoy as me and you, this time.
Thank
Thank you.
thank you.
I wyciągam potem teczkę. Nie będzie nas równo.